5 years ago, I embarked on this journey when my first book came out. Of being a professional speaker, author, trainer. And I ended up working with a consultant, a guy by the name of Mark Levy. And Mark Levy is kind of like the author whisperer. He works with kind of top thought leaders, working with them on positioning and understanding their backstory. And it was a great experience working with Mark. And we spent a ton of time on my personal backstory. And during our time together, Mark shared a story with me that I'll never forget. He told me about one of his clients, and his client's name was Ed. Ed happened to be a financial planner. And he had come to Mark because he wanted to get more clients and was really kind of flatlining. And so as Mark worked with him, he said, well, how do you get clients, Ed? And Ed says, well, every month or so, he says, I'll put on a public seminar, very much like this, about 40 people in the room. He says, I'll do a 90-minute free seminar, and at the end, I'll make my pitch. And the pitch is this: if you want to do a personal consultation, 1 hour, I'll do it for free. Well, Mark said to Ed, he said, well, you get about 40 people in the room. How many people take you up on that offer? He says, maybe, if it's a good day, 4 or 5, but usually about 3. Mark said to Ed, he said, Ed, let me ask you a question. Why did you become a financial advisor for small business owners? And Ed said, well, he says, when I was 12 years old, he said, my parents both passed away in a car accident. He says, I was forced to go live with my grandparents, and they did a great job raising me. He says, in fact, when I was 15 years old, he says, I can remember it like yesterday. I'm in the living room with my grandfather, and he's reading the paper. And all of a sudden he stops and he points at this thing in the paper and he goes, this is it. He grabs his grandmother takes his grandmother in the room. He says, look, there's a small business for sale. He says, we've worked for other people our entire lives. This is it. We're going to open this shop. It happened to be a butcher shop. So they cashed in their life savings and they went to work at this butcher shop. As with most small businesses, first year they lost a fair amount of money. The second year they lost a little less money. Third year even a little less than that. And Ed watched the toll that took on his grandparents. By the 5th year, they had run out of all their capital. They had to declare bankruptcy. And he watched his parents, his grandparents, at almost the age of 70, both have to go back and get full-time jobs, of which they both worked till they passed away. And he looked at Mark, he said, I became a financial planner for small businesses because I didn't want to have people business owners go through what my grandparents went through. Mark said, Ed, he goes, when do you have one of those seminars coming up again? He says, in fact, there's one 2 weeks from now. And Mark said, this is what I want you to do. Cut your seminar down to 85 minutes. He says, but I want you to spend the first 5 minutes and tell everyone that story. And so Ed came to see Mark a few weeks later, and Mark said, well, how did that seminar go? He says, well, there was 40 people in the room. He says, did you do what I said? Yeah, I spent the first 5 minutes. Mark said, how many people came up to do the consultation with you? He said, 37 of the 40 people. Understanding your why and your purpose in business and being able to communicate that is on its way to becoming the ultimate differentiator. Tapping into your purpose and why. It is powerful because it not only impacts the customers that buy from you, but it also impacts your employees. This is research by PwC. 6 out of 7 employees say that they would consider leaving their employer if the values of that employer, which come directly from the purpose, no longer meet their expectations. 6 out of 7. Same thing on the customer side. All things being equal, 6 out of 7 customers will consider doing business with a company whose values mesh with their own. Why do I think business is moving towards purpose being a greater and greater driver? Well, let's take a step back and look at how business has evolved. If you go to the 1.0 version of business, who was put first in business? It was the shareholder, right? And what was your goal as a business? It was to maximize the return for those shareholders. Everything that you do was focused on that profit. Only to engage in activities that were designed to maximize profits. This was the predominant view from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The 80s rolled around and a few businesses said, you know what? The shareholder is important, but there's somebody who's ahead of the shareholder. And the 2.0 version was this. Let's actually put our customers first. Because at the end of the day, what is business about? You are in the business of creating and keeping a customer. And if you do that right, then the profits would follow. In the 1990s, there were a group of companies that took that one level further. Instead of putting the customers first, they realized that was great, but you couldn't do that at the expense of this other group. The 3.0 version was, how do you actually put your employees first? And it was the simple fact that you can't have happy, enthused customers unless you have happy, engaged employees. All of the value that's created is within these 2 feet between the customer and the employee. I think we're on the dawn of the 4.0 version of business. And that's actually a higher one. That's actually putting purpose first at the center of everything that you do. Starting with why your company exists. Simon Sinek actually put it the best. He says, people don't buy what you do. In fact, they don't even buy how you do it. They buy why you do it. And it turns out that being purpose-focused isn't just a good thing to do. It's actually good business. This is a study by Harvard Business Review. They said over the course of the last 15 years, that companies that led with purpose first were outperforming their competitors by a 10x factor of return. We've talked about purple today. We've talked about blue. Why red for the red goldfish? Being all about purpose. Red was inspired from a very, very unlikely place. In fact, the lead singer of a band, the band U2, Bono, was the inspiration behind red. 11 years ago, Bono created a thing with Bobby Shriver. It was called the Red Campaign. And he went out and he partnered with businesses to create a simple concept. Create red products that were exclusive, and a portion of those sales would go back to a purpose-based charity. In this case, it was all about Africa. Partnered with a lot of top brands. Over the last decade, that program has raised over $360 million for Africa. In fact, I'm wearing a red product right now from Apple, the Apple Watch. As with all of the other books, we looked at literally hundreds of examples. And on the purpose side of the equation, it turns out that there's 8 different archetypes or symbols that you can attach yourselves to from a purpose perspective. And here they are. And I'm going to cover, just because we have a short amount of time, I want to cover about 4 or 5 of those today to give you a sense. The first one is this. By the way, they're all based from the top down on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Here's the first type. It's the protector. Brands with the protector archetype are all about trying to protect what's important out there. Brands that fall into this, by the way, every one of these has a symbol, so who's the ultimate protector? Superman. Brands that fall into this, Ben & Jerry's, Burt's Bees, Cotopaxi. But the one we really feel epitomizes this, Patagonia. Patagonia is all about trying to create a more sustainable world. And so a red goldfish is that little thing that you do to bring that purpose to life. For them, they have a program called Green Sabbaticals. If you're an employee of Patagonia, you get up to 2 months to be able to volunteer at the nonprofit of your choice that has an environmental purpose attached to it. Great little thing that they do to reinforce. Here's the third thing, the designer, third archetype. The designer is all about creating revolutionary products. Who's the symbol for the designer? From the movie Back to the Future? Doc Brown. Designer type of brands, Method, IDEO, Tesla, all about trying to create revolutionary products through great design. The brand we feel epitomizes this is Apple. And I want to play you a clip. This is a program that Apple did with their iPad to draw awareness around Autism Awareness Week. I'm going to try that one more time to see if we can get some.
My name is Dylan, and I am autistic. All my life I wanted so badly to connect with people. But they couldn't understand, because I had no way to communicate. I get to experience the world in a very unique way. I can see the wind, hear the flowers. I can feel incredible emotions flowing from those I love.
Twin paw, a twin paw. This man now.
Many.
So many. So many. So many. So many. So many.
So many people can't understand that I have a mind. All they see is a person who is not in control. But now you can hear me. The iPad helps me to see not only my words but to hold on to my thoughts. Having a voice has changed everything in my life. No more isolation. I can finally speak with the people that love me. I can say what I think and let them know I love them too.
Hi, Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan Bartamash. We are the reality of our thinking life, and are capable of so much if we just open our minds.
Apple, through their design, has revolutionized the way that kids learn and has given people like Dylan a voice. The fourth archetype is what we call the guide. And the guide is all about trying to help people along, facilitate their individual progress. The symbol for the guide from the movie The Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, the ultimate guide. Brands that fall into this, folks like the Khan Academy, King Arthur Flour, D-Light. The brand that we feel epitomizes this the most is Google. Their purpose is to help people along, organizing the world's information and making it accessible. Here's a short spot on how they bring that to life.
Hello. Bonjour.
Très très mignon. Alors?
Le commandant et toute son équipe espèrent que vous avez passé un agréable moment.
Google's literally revolutionized the way that we live and work and access information. The sixth type is the challenger. And the challenger archetype is all about trying to inspire people to a greater version of themselves. And so who's an example of that from the movie Gladiator? Maximus, rallying people together, inspiring them. Brands that fit this mold, folks like Lego, Barbie, New Leaf Paper. But we feel one of the most inspiring brands out there is Nike. Nike believes that if you have a body, you are an athlete. And they're about inspiring you to be the best athlete that you can be. Here's a short video on how they bring their purpose to life.
A few years ago, I would have had trouble walking up this hill. I smoked, I drank, I was fat, and I hadn't done a lick of exercise in my life. So I started jogging. Who says you can't run away from your problems?
Nike's all about inspiring you to be a better version of yourselves. Last type we're going to cover today is what we call the master. They're at the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy. They're all about true transformation and self-actualization. The symbol for the master, who's the ultimate Jedi master? Yoda. Obi-Wan. No, Yoda. Wrong you are, yes. brands that fit into that, Tom's, CVS, Grayston Bakery. They're not only about trying to change people's lives, they're also about uplifting everyone and improving the world. The brand that we feel epitomizes this is Warby Parker. Their mission is to provide eyewear to make it accessible to everyone and to lead the way for socially conscious businesses. We don't realize how impactful a pair of glasses can be. If you're elderly, it could restore your dignity. If you're a child, it could be the one thing that stands between you and an education. And they've been able to really pioneer through the buy a pair, give a pair. And what's interesting, they're not just giving them away, they're actually setting up distribution in the developing world to give people access in the future to eye care and actually creating jobs for people. So as we finish up Red Goldfish, I'm challenging you to think about your business. Which of these 8 archetypes do you feel like you're closest to? And more importantly, how are you doing the little things that are bringing your purpose to life?